Nikkia Miller, known as Swavey, had millions of followers on TikTok. He's now part of a growing list of people killed in Delaware's most populous city.
The 32-year-old had just stepped outside this inner Sydney restaurant when a car pulled up alongside her. One man getting out and hurling the corrosive liquid directly at her, splashing her eyes and neck.
In April 2020, an Australian TikToker clapped back at some goons who were leaving threats on her videos. Little did she know this would push them over the edge, and what they did next would change her life forever. Here are 5 TikTokers who messed with the wrong goons. This. And this. Were the kinds of videos 19-year-old Nikkia Miller, better known as Swavey, shared on his TikTok page before his tragic death. With over 2.5 million TikTok followers and more than 400,000 on the gram, he was all about good vibes on the screen. But behind the scenes, he was tangled up in some dangerous gang ties that ultimately sealed his fate. That might sound like some crazy bullshit, but give us a few minutes and allow us to explain. Born December 26, 2001, Swavey was raised in Wilmington, Delaware, alongside his brother, fellow TikToker Stack Up Quan. Now, Swavey made his TikTok debut in 2020 using his babyface.s account and became a favorite amongst users due to his amazing dance moves, good sense of humor, and fashion choices. He also made a few comedy skits here and there, but the bottom line is he became a sensation on this platform. Yet, barely a year later, he lost his life. Around 10:42 on July 5th, 2021, Wilmington police receive a call about a shooting on the 700 block of Elbert Place. By the time they get there, they find Swavey and another teenager with gunshot wounds. Where the shots hit weren't specified, but paramedics arrived and Swavey was rushed to the hospital, where he later died from his injuries. Barely hours after the news of his death hit social media, a popular YouTuber, Kid Mari, shared this video on his channel, mourning Swavey's death. A couple of other fans and friends would do the same, while the last TikTok video Swavey posted barely 24 hours before garnered over 9.2 million views, with more than 29,000 comments. However, amidst all the RIPs and tribute videos, there's a surprising lack of information about the circumstances of his death. No one knows where he was shot, who pulled the trigger, or most importantly, why. Wilmington officers have been tight-lipped, offering no details, but that's exactly where we come in. It's April 2024. Swavey's shooter was identified to be 20-year-old Israel Lecomte. So first question, why did Lecomte want Swavey dead? Well, to answer that question, you have to understand that Lecomte's motives was tied to a string of gun violence and gang activities in the city of Wilmington. You see, a month before Swavey was shot, authorities charged several young men with felony gang involvement in the North Pack gang, along with various other crimes, which included homicides. Throughout multiple trials, prosecutors argued that North Pack's conflict with other groups of young people in the city fueled a series of murders around that time. And drawing on testimony from a state gang expert and young men implicated in gang-related offenses, that these groups primarily exist to provoke and harm other affiliated youths in the city, using social media to bolster their reputation. Now, what does any of that even mean? Well, according to the Deputy Attorney General, Anthony Hill, he believes Swavey was killed not because he was a gang member, but because he was associated with them. And by May 2021, most of Lecomte's North Pack gang members were either locked up or facing an indictment, so he took it upon himself to keep the gang's name alive by committing a string of murders. He kicked things off by opening fire in a park in North Wilmington on June 9, 2021, and almost a month later he killed Swavey, not because they had any personal beef, but because Swavey was friends with Quentin Dorsey, a 22-year-old Lecomte considered to be his op. And even more shocking is that Lecomte actually murdered Dorsey just a day before he killed Swavey. Now, one of Swavey's close friends would tell authorities that Swavey was shot close to his home while they were both walking back from grabbing breakfast at Mickey D's. A black Nissan caught on surveillance during the murder of Dorsey was also seen by by Swavy's friend during the shooting. Now, Swavy's friend knew LeCompte from around the neighborhood and immediately sent a photo of him on Instagram to Swavy's brother, identifying him as the shooter. LeCompte's phone was also noted to have been connected to the Bluetooth of the Nissan car, which was later found dumped by the roadside. Subsequently, LeCompte was arrested and convicted of first-degree murder. Since he was already 18 at the time he killed Swavy, his conviction mandated a life sentence without the possibility of parole. He was also facing a conviction for a slew of other crimes, ranging from gun violence to robbery, and now he's currently facing a separate 27-year sentence for another 2021 shooting that he pled guilty to. On the other hand, Swavy's death marked the 16th to be recorded in that city for 2021, and his TikTok page has grown to over 3.8 million followers with 139 million likes. His GoFundMe account set up by his family has reached its target of $19,000. Now, his death came as a shock, and honestly, his fans haven't been able to get over it, and maybe they never will. But best believe Swavy ain't the only TikToker in this video who lost their life for crossing paths with dangerous people.
Yeah, it's on my face, I need water. I can't see!
I don't know what it is. She can't breathe. She can't see.
Oh yeah, I can't breathe.
That was the moment 34-year-old Australian TikToker Jenny Alhassan was brutally attacked in public, live on her stream, as gang members doused her with acid. At around 11 p.m. on April 15, 2022, Jenny, known on TikTok with this account, was live streaming in Sydney, strolling through Haymarket with her sister, and as they walked through the Old Town, a fake account user asked for her location and questioned why she was wearing sunglasses so late, demanding she take them off. Jenny ignored the comments, continuing her stream when suddenly, a black SUV pulled up beside him. A man jumps out, sprays a corrosive substance directly in her face, and quickly hops back in the moving vehicle. Jenny was left with severe burns on her right eye, forehead, and neck, and was rushed to the Royal North Shore Hospital for treatment. As shocking as that attack was, it's only a fraction of a much larger and darker story. You see, before this attack, Jenny had a connection to one of Sydney's most notorious criminals, Stephen Elmire. Elmire, a convicted drug smuggler, was once married to Jenny's sister, Aaliyah. His criminal empire would crumble when he was sentenced to 24 years in prison for drug trafficking. But before his extradition to Australia, he had spent 2 years in a Dubai prison for an unpaid civil debt. And even though he's currently locked up and unable to apply for parole for another 7 years, his name still lingers in the shadows of Jenny's story. Now, while Amir was married to Aaliyah, his close associate, Aliyah Hancho Younes, was romantically involved with Jenny. Now, the relationship grew strong enough that Younes reportedly invested $200,000 to boost Jenny's TikTok career. But after she gained fame, things between them soured, and Younes, who has connections to the notorious Alhassan crime family, has become a prime suspect in Jenny's attack, but more on that later. Now, his connection to the Alhassans wasn't the only reason he drew suspicion. Days before the assault, Jenny uploaded a series of TikToks taunting an unknown individual who had threatened her in the comments of her videos.
Okay, so today, guys, while I was streaming, someone came into my live and asked me, her live, didn't ask me, told me I better take the podcast down of my name or there's gonna be an order on me.
I'm making sure everything's public, so if you want to come for me, come for me. I'm more than welcome.
In one video, she said that she had previously mentioned this person on a podcast, and they didn't take it well. In another, she claimed that there was a bounty on her head.
I do have a very big mouth, I won't lie to you.
Oh, okay.
I do have a very big mouth, but like to the point where someone wants to go and offer someone money and try to beat me with a bat, and I have a daughter.
But in this cryptic twist, Jenny also shared a recording where a police officer warned her to stay in public places for her own safety because people were after her. She had all these telltale signs that something bad was about to happen to her, yet she didn't take as much precaution. But even with that, a whole new round of drama unfolded for Jenny after the attack. After she got sprayed with acid, she ran to a nearby building, pleading for water and for someone to perform CPR. She later shared videos of those injuries online, but when police questioned her about the assault, she refused to cooperate. She claimed to know one of the attackers, yet refused to reveal their identity or press charges. Her silence has raised even more questions than answers, leaving many to wonder what secrets she might be hiding, and her true relationship with Sydney's criminal underworld. Around midnight on November 4th, 2023, Australian TikToker Jacob Najjar was dragged from his home on Grazier Street in Lidcombe, Sydney, by a group of about 7. He was taken to an isolated location where his worst fears as a TikToker came to life. For context here, 36-year-old Jacob is an Iraqi-Australian social media influencer and the owner of Thirsty Monkey, a popular cafe chain in southwest Sydney known for its acai bowls. Najjar has garnered attention both for his comedic TikTok content and his business. His personal page on TikTok has over 56,000 followers, while his business page has nearly 30,000. But in between uploading funny vlogs of his business life and chatting with his fans, Najjar soon became the target of a couple of goons. After being abducted from his home, Najjar was forced into a vehicle, driven out of town, and tortured for nearly 24 hours. He was eventually discovered about 30 kilometers away on Lower Washington Drive in Bonnet Bay, southern Sydney. Suffering from facial injuries and a superficial stab wound, he received immediate treatment from paramedics at the scene, before being transported to Sutherland Hospital, where he was reported to be in a more stable condition. So, what's the story behind his abduction? The first thing to know is that no one, not even Najjar himself, knows for sure who his abductors were. When questioned, he claimed he was knocked unconscious, leaving him with no memory of what actually happened. However, investigators have speculated on a few possible scenarios based on the evidence from that day. Detectives believe his abduction is linked to a separate incident where another Australian man was abducted from his shop, and just like Najjar, the 44-year-old was returned almost 24 hours later with minor facial injuries. It's speculated that the group behind both abductions could be linked to the notorious Alhassan crime clan. And we've talked a bit about this clan already, so I'd be doing you a huge injustice if I didn't explain who these people are and how they could have been tied to Najjar's abduction. The Alhassan crime clan is a notorious criminal organization operating primarily in Sydney, Australia. They're known for drug trafficking, money laundering, extortion, and violent crimes, establishing themselves as a major force within the crime underworld. The family's originally of Lebanese descent and has deep roots in the western suburbs of Sydney, where they have engaged in a long-running turf war with rival gangs, including the Hamzi clan. One of the most infamous aspects of the Alhassan clan's activities is their significant role in the local drug trade, particularly in the distribution of illegal narcotics like cocaine and methamphetamine. They've developed a complex network that allows them to move large quantities of drugs through various channels, earning them millions in illicit profits. But it keeps going. In addition to their drug empire, the clan is also known for their involvement in violent turf disputes, with several shootings, kidnappings, and retaliations linked to their name. Yet, as dangerous as these people are, Najjar might have just had some links to them. In this photo, Najjar is seen at the front right, alongside high-profile Alhassan associates John Ray Basari, Murat Gulasi, and Masoud Zakaria. They could simply just be friends. Or perhaps they were business partners. Maybe Najjar had some connections with them, or maybe he doesn't. Who knows? But after the abduction gained widespread attention on social media, Sydney police were able to arrest 3 men and 1 woman involved in the incident. One of the men, a 30-year-old, was charged with 2 counts of kidnapping for ransom and causing actual bodily harm, as well as conspiracy to kidnap for ransom and directing a criminal group. The other 2 men also faced charges for kidnapping for ransom and causing actual bodily harm, breaking and entering with intent to commit a crime, participating in a criminal group, 2 counts of being in a stolen vehicle, conspiring to kidnap for ransom, and driving while disqualified. 3 other people were taken into custody before one final suspect, a 24-year-old woman, was also linked to Najjar's abduction. So while there's still a whole lot to this case that we don't know, Najjar has moved on from the situation apparently, but that's something we can't say about this next TikToker on the list. In 2023, Lebanon was shaken by the brutal rape and murder of Layyan Talib. But barely a year later, another disturbing scandal hits the nation, this time involving some of its most popular social media influencers and TikTokers. In May 2024, Lebanese authorities began investigating a shocking case involving 28 to 30 individuals who used TikTok and Instagram to minors into performing indecent acts on camera. Now, the videos were then sold on the dark web. Out of the suspects, 9 were arrested, including George Muayed, a TikTok influencer with over 400,000 followers. Now, George is a popular TikToker known for his hair salon called Hair Zone in Beirut's Sabti neighborhood. His content largely focuses on hair makeovers filmed inside his salon, but we'll get into that later. The real question you're probably asking yourself right now is, how does a gang manage to use TikTok to lure minors? Well, to get to the bottom of that, we need to understand TikTok's massive influence in 2024. It's no secret that the app, owned by the Chinese company ByteDance, is widely popular, especially with Gen Z. But here's the staggering part. TikTok has 1.67 billion active users every month, according to Demand Sage. It's ranked the 6th most popular social media platform globally, and its audience is nearly split, with 57 users being female and 43% male. Most of them are aged between 18 and 34, and on top of that, TikTok is recognized as the fastest growing app since its launch in 2016, with projections showing it could surpass 2 billion users by 2027. However, despite global success and its impact on culture, businesses, and influencers, TikTok is under intense scrutiny from governments worldwide. Take June 2020 for instance. India banned that app over political tension with China. Nepal would follow suit in November 2023, and Pakistan has issued several temporary bans since 2020. In the West, TikTok faces mounting pressure over data security concerns. It's already banned from government-issued devices in countries like the UK, US, Canada, and New Zealand. Even the European Commission has prohibited its staff from using TikTok on their work phones. In April 2024, US President Joe Biden signed the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act, citing national security issues with TikTok. Now, that law was a major blow to the parent company, since the US has the highest number of users, nearly 150 million. Now, the law effectively mandates either a ban or a forced sale of TikTok in the country, signaling the app might be on a rapid decline if more governments follow suit. Lebanon in particular could be next in line, and here's why. George Muayed, the TikToker who went by the username at HairZone700, was arrested after several minors reported being sexually exploited on camera by members of his predatory gang. These children shared disturbing details, including performing immoral acts and the use of drugs at hotels, all orchestrated under the guise of TikTok fame. One victim, whose identity remains protected, revealed how the gang him. A few months after starting his TikTok account, the victim was contacted by this anonymous account calling itself The Agency. The account claimed to recruit 15 and 16-year-olds for funny videos that would be monetized, promising the victim a cut of the earnings. George Muayed, using his now disabled account with over 400,000 followers, suggested cutting the victim's hair on camera for free, also promising exposure to his large audience. But what seemed like a simple offer soon became much more sinister. After the video went live, the victim began receiving flirtatious messages from anonymous accounts. Things escalated when an elderly man reached out, offering to buy the victim a new phone and $1,500 in cash if they met IRL. And rather than meeting in a public place, the man would insist on sending a taxi to take that victim to a private location. Thank God the victim refused, and this man was later identified as another member of this child trafficking ring. And as crazy as all this sounds, Muayed wasn't the only Lebanese TikToker influencer involved. We have Gigi Ganawi, known as TikTok Gigi, immediately wiping her social media accounts, which had thousands of followers, after being accused by Lebanese media and some victims of being part of this disturbing gang. Her accounts had multiple photos with alleged leaders of this gang, Paul Mucci and Peter Nafa. These two men, who seem to revel in their twisted acts, have shown no remorse toward their victims. Allegedly, they initially started this gang to exploit minors, but soon realized the large market online for trading explicit material. They've reportedly spent millions on parties that involved minors, using these events as opportunities to prey on their victims. The most horrifying part, after all these parties, some victims would get raped with Paula Nafa allegedly taking things further by physically abusing and beating the victims. As for TikTok Gigi, while she didn't physically harm or rape any victims, she played a different role. She sent provocative messages to the victims, luring them into meeting up with her. Given that she embodies the ideal dream girl for most teenagers, most of these kids were eager to meet her. However, once they arrived at the designated location, they were ambushed by gang members who exploited them. And to make matters worse, after the initial exploitation, the gang would use these videos to blackmail the victims, coercing them into further exploitation. This vicious cycle often involved forcing the victims to use drugs and placing them in dangerous, life-threatening situations. And as expected, these shocking allegations have ignited outrage across Lebanon and beyond, with many now calling for TikTok to be banned in this country. And given that we've seen other nations implement such bans, could Lebanon be next? At 5:30 p.m. on May 20th, 2024, 24-year-old TikToker Nikkia Marshall was asleep on her sofa in South Yorkshire when she was jolted awake by a loud bang. Two masked intruders, both wielding crowbars, had broken into her home. Nikkia sprang up, rushing towards the stairs with her two dogs following close behind. But before she could reach safety, one of these intruders had landed a violent punch, knocking her down. At the time, Nikkia was married to 37-year-old Mike Marshall, a traveler whose cousin Paris Fury is the wife of heavyweight boxing champion Tyson Fury. Nikkia gained online fame in 2021 through her YouTube series I Married a Traveler, which provided a raw look into her life with Mike. And being that she wasn't from a Romani gypsy family, Nikkia faced backlash, with some traveler women calling her a wannabe and worse. In response, Nikkia turned to TikTok, creating an account where she shared vlogs and funny videos of her and Mike. The account has since attracted nearly 300,000 followers, while her personal page, at Nikkia Marshall 1, has over 200,000 fans for her fashion and beauty tips. Though her candid takes on controversial topics have won her a strong female following, she would also draw the dislike of male viewers. At one point, she called out men who bothered her for affairs, revealing she had received 20 such requests daily. And given the many controversies she was involved in, it's easy to see why Nikkia might have been targeted by goons. On the day of the attack, after being struck by that intruder, Nikkia managed to get to the bedroom upstairs. She thought about jumping out of the window but stopped when the intruders began smashing up her house. Her husband Michael was away at a roofing job, leaving her feeling even more vulnerable. At one point, one of the masked men, believed to be the leader, saw her through the window and chillingly said,
"That's what happens when you try to be a big man. I'm coming back to finish the job and I'm gonna shoot you."
Nikkia watched the group leave, with one carrying a gun. She immediately called police and her husband, and in the aftermath, CCTV helps identify one of the men, who was recognized by his gypsy dialect. Also, Nikkia was later rushed to the hospital with multiple cuts on her feet from shattered glass. And these just serve as a reminder that whatever you do, make sure you subscribe. I mean, don't blur the lines between social media antics and dangerous criminal encounters.